It's time for another book special, and this time I'm counting down the 10 best kids in the works of Stephen King. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. Do check out the link in the description to all the other stuff I'm doing, my Stephen King quiz book, podcasts, my fiction, all of those kind of things. But more than anything, thank you so much for coming along and checking out this video. I really hope you like it. Now, normally at the moment I'm going through the movies and TV series based on Stephen King's works in chronological order and trying to give you 19 reasons to read each one. But at least once a month I stop off that particular train, get on another one and do some book specials, and this is one of those book specials, and it was suggested by Jacob Davis in the comments, and it's my top 10 kids from the books of Stephen King, and I'm going to count down my ranking in a completely spoiler free way so you can enjoy this whether you've read the books featured here or not. I won't be ruining anything for you. So thanks to Jacob for the suggestion, and if you've got a suggestion for a special, a future book special, drop them in the comments. I'm screenshotting them as I go along and I will get to them eventually. If you don't have an idea for a special, don't worry, that's fine. But what you can do in the comments is let me know your favourite child characters from the books of Stephen King. I'd love to know who your favourites are. Okay, I think that's about time to get cracking on this, other than to say, no, Jack Sawyer from The Talisman will not feature in this list because fuck that guy. Okay, here are my 10 favourite kids from the books of Stephen King, spoiler free. Okay, I'm going to start with Desperation and the character David Carver. Now normally, someone so completely and almost oppressively religious would put me off, but in this book, he's a much needed, grounding, calming leader, despite him only being a child. And his faith is a large part of his character. So it works. It doesn't bother me at all. And his faith has sort of come into his life through a very positive experience. So it's not your traditional overbearing mother, weird Midwestern background, all of those kind of things. It feels, like I say, very natural. And it just works with this character. He's really smart, he's really resourceful. As I said earlier, he's really grounded. And I just like him. And in this book, which is like complete chaos, this almost zen-like, very grown-up child in the middle is just a really much-needed presence. So at 9, we're going into Needful Things and the character Brian Rusk. Now, I'm a sucker for a tragic arc, and without wanting to spoil too much, Brian's arc does get somewhat tragic in this. Some of his scenes are pretty tough to read, but I like him in this because he is the first real person we meet in this. He's the first character who goes into the brand new Needful Things store. He is the first customer at Needful Things. And it's through him that we see what Leland Gaunt, the proprietor of Needful Things, actually has in mind and why he's in Castle Rock. He's just a really well-written, sharp, young pre-teen who gets himself in a bad situation and has to deal with it. I just like him a lot. So at 8, we're going into Cell and the character Jordan. Now, King is very good at writing young people who are resourceful, likeable and loyal. And Jordan is all of those things. So we meet him at the Gayton Academy when our bunch of main characters end up there themselves. And yeah, he's just all of those things. He's smart. He's really useful to the main cast of characters. He is incredibly loyal and he's very, very likeable. It seems very enjoyable. And I know this is a book special. He was one of the better parts of the movie as well. Although granted, that is not saying much. Look at that, I found a palm reader sticker in my copy of Cell. Best band. 7 is Danny Torrance from The Shining. Now, he was always going to feature here, wasn't he? And for you, he might well be much higher up your list. But for me, he's got some tough competition, so he lands at number 7. Danny is obviously very powerful. And that combination of how powerful he is, plus the dark power of the Overlook Hotel, and nobody being around to help him, that's a bad combination for our young Danny. And then throw into the mix a problematic father who, it doesn't take much to tip him into the darker side of things. yeah, that winter up in the mountains, not such a good idea. I really love how vulnerable Danny is, but I also love how strong he is as well throughout this book. So at 6, it's Charlie McGee from Firestarter. Now, did I just include Charlie here because I don't want her to track me down and burn me up? Maybe a little bit, but she is also a badass, and I also feel really sorry for her. Like, she just wants a normal life with her daddy. She's just a little girl who wants to enjoy life, but with the gifts or the curses, however you interpret them, that she has got as part of her, that was never really an option. And she goes through an awful lot in this book, but very quickly. Despite some of the things she has to do, you're just there on the sidelines just cheering her on and hoping that she does it. And actually, of all the characters I can think of, particularly the child characters, you know, if there's anyone I'd be interested in seeing where they'd got to, like a sequel, basically, I'd love to know whatever happened to Charlie McGee. So at 5, it's Avery Dixon from The Institute. Now, The Institute being a book packed full of kids, I would have hoped for a few more iconic ones. Sadly, for me, I found them mostly forgettable, except for little Avery. Not this dude. Coolest name I can think of from any King character, that's one thing, but he is one powerful little guy. He's head and shoulders above everything else in this book, the best thing for me. He's an absolute slam dunk, and yeah, like I say, my favourite thing about this book by a million miles. So at 4, it's Jake Chambers from the Dark Tower series. Now, I'm not that big a Dark Tower fan, so I was a little surprised that Jake ended up as high up on my list as he did, but can't really find any justification to move him down any places at all. He's a hugely important part to the quartet across this series. He has a particularly powerful impact on Roland, and he holds his own as a gunslinger right from very early on. And just think about it, he's kind, he's compassionate, he's thoughtful, he's sharp, he's clever, but most of all, Oi the Billy Bumbler absolutely adores him, and frankly there is no higher praise than that. So at 3, we're in Salem's Lot. Yes, this is a Salem's Lot cover, and we're talking Mark Petrie. Now, Mark Petrie is kind of King's OG smart kid, and objectively, he is way unrealistically cool for his age. But yet he's so well written that completely pulls it off, and he's just proof that actually being a horror nerd and a monsters junkie and generally just a bit of a geek can actually have its benefits in life. And ultimately, what I realised when I was putting this special together was, actually I think it's the fate of Mark Petrie that keeps me turning the pages in Salem's Lot, which is saying something because Salem's Lot is an incredible book, but he is the character I am most invested in. So far from him being this annoying, unrealistically cool kid like you might see in some indie movie, he totally works, and he is, for me at least, the driving force of this story. So at 2, it's Trish McFarland from The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. I mean, aside from the fact that she's really into baseball, what's not to love about Trish? I mean, sure, she wanders off and gets lost in the woods, and that's not a spoiler because that is the whole hook of the story. But once that happens, I mean, she really comes into her own, and she is strong, she is savvy, she is smart, she is a solid as steel survivor, and she fares far better in those circumstances than I would certainly do, and than most people I can think of would do as well. Like, she's an absolute gem of a character, and I love spending all this time with her. At number 1, it's the entire Losers Club from It. Now, am I cheating a little bit putting all 7 here and sort of staying on the fence and not just making a decision and committing? Maybe, but this is my list. Frankly, I don't care. And also, can you really justify bringing just one of the Losers Club to the table? Because they're all so interconnected and so dependent on each other. They are the best quartet that King has ever written across his career. And they're a bunch of characters who I would gladly read way, way more stories about. And they don't even need to have Pennywise in. I just like spending time with these 7 kids, particularly when they are kids. That's when they're the most compelling, that's where their friendship group is the most powerful, and when they are the best written. I mean, just think about the entire 7 here. We've got Stan as the brains, we've got Richie as the sense of humour, we've got Eddie as this sort of unexpected slice of bravery, we've got Ben with the real practical skills, we've got Mike as their solid pillar of reliability, we've got Bill, who is the heart, and we've got Bev, who is the fire and the absolute driving force. I mean, sure, I have my favourites within the group, and I'm sure you do as well, and I probably would identify with one or two of them more than the others, and you probably do the same, but they're so powerful as a whole. That's where their magic is. It's as the core 7, the whole group, and that's why I've included them as one character at the top of this list. You know, take away one part of this and it does weaken the group as a whole, particularly when they're kids. I think really when it comes down to is with the Losers Club as children, when people in general extol how good King is at writing kids, they're thinking about the Losers Club, and that's why they're comfortably top of my list. They're the kind of group that you want to spend time with, you want them to succeed, you want to be friends with them. And quite simply, not just among Stephen King's works, but among any books I've read ever, they are some of the best child characters ever committed and printed to page. So there we go, there's my 10 favourite child characters from the works of Stephen King. As I said at the start, let me know your favourites in the comments as well, because I'd love to hear which ones you dig, which ones I might have missed. Before you all comment, I was very close to putting Ellie Creed from Pet Sematary in, but she didn't quite make the cut. And also, what I realised when doing this list is that perhaps, actually, when I was trying to think of good child characters, yeah, I found some, but actually I think Stephen King is better at writing childhood than children. I don't know whether that's a hot take. Let's say it is a hot take. Let me know what you think. Is King better at crafting child characters, or is he better at reflecting on childhood? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Also, don't forget to check the links in the description to the podcast, Stephen King quiz book, my fiction, all of those kind of things. But more than anything, thank you for getting this far. Thank you for checking out this video. If you've subscribed already, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Tell a friend, get more people involved. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel but you enjoyed this, then maybe click that button and you won't miss any future videos on all things Stephen King.